Dylan. Dylan has an award that he would like to present.
Can I have Ed and Diane come up as well? Open the box. That I just opened. So the Rotary Foundation is the vehicle for which Rotarians make a global impact. It's our contribution to the Rotary Foundation that funds worldwide programs aimed at the eradication of polio, creating peace, providing clean water, education, youth, and providing an assistance in those needs. To date, the Rotary Foundation has invested over $4 billion in aid around the world, and last year alone, the Rotary Foundation provided $98 million in grants and awards globally. The presentation of a Paul Harris Fellow is the Rotary Foundation's way of expressing its appreciation for a substantial contribution to its humanitarian and educational programs. It's one of the most prestigious awards in Rotary and thereby named for our founder, Paul Harris. Diane Gehrke, it was sponsored by Ed Gehrke to receive this recognition because he believes her life exemplifies the humanitarian and educational objectives of the Rotary Foundation, and Diane's dedication to community and helping those in need makes her deserving of this award. I'll also point out it's a surprise to her. This recognition of this award, in the recognition of this award, we present Diane with the Paul Harris pin and certificate. By accepting this pin, she will join a family of over 1 million Paul Harris Fellows worldwide. Please help me in congratulating and recognizing our newest Paul Harris Fellow.
Thank you. And I would just like to say the thing that we do for peace is may the Prince of Peace prevail on earth. So we will.
Drop the pen. Dropped it.
Wow, I flew far.
It did.
And then Brian has the pen.
Ed, would you like to pin this on Diane? Don't drop it.
Put it on One America. No, that's for sure.
Not used to pinning. There we go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Congratulations again. Okay, thank you very much. Well, Ed, why don't you stay up here? You're next on the program. Ed has a wonderful program that he'd like to introduce with David. Turn the floor over to you.
Thank you very much. Last week they mentioned that they didn't have a program for this week, so it happened, and so I said, well, one thing we could do is do about our journey to Washington D.C. from Fargo. And so on that journey, I met Dave Knopf, and apparently Dave knows everybody in town. And he's been a great asset. We became friends, and I said, well, I'm working with Daniel and so forth to build an addition to my house, but might use a little help. And he said, well, I'm a contractor, don't have a crew right now. And I said, well, I got a crew without necessarily somebody to do the paperwork kind of stuff. And so we've teamed up, and we're having a great time together and doing great work and actually coming up with some pretty neat ideas, and it's turning out awesome. So I'm unlike the others here, I'm not necessarily looking forward to snow because we're still in construction. So I met Dave on the journey, and we've become friends, I would say, by now, working together and so forth. And so, Dave, why don't you come up? I did put together a slideshow. He hasn't necessarily seen this, but we can kind of, somewhat chronological or anyway, so we kind of talked through our journey together. I think what this whole thing was about was that after, well, I was in the Vietnam period, boarded a ship off the coast of Vietnam for 2 6 months periods and so forth. And so we did the work on helicopter carriages for pretty much everything from evacuations to landings to supplies and so forth. So we really worked there and pretty involved in what happened in Vietnam. Dave is a different experience, but one of the National Guard here. To be honest with you, I didn't ask him this, but I'd like to just share a little bit. I didn't know anything about the National Guard in Detroit Lakes, and here I'm a veteran myself. But anyway, this honor flight, when Dave can describe a little bit of what happened, the doing this all in the United States. But I'm gonna turn with Dave, I'm just gonna move the slides and he can wing it. Thanks, Ed. Yeah, no, so I got involved. How I originally got Dave Woman, Kurt Yerkes, and I were on guard for, I think between the two of us, probably had 80 years of service. I mean, three of us in the National Guard. But anyway, we heard about the Honor Guard flight and put our application in about 2.5 years ago. And there's it takes about that long, because there's about 900 people waiting to get on that flight. And right now, when they first started, they started it for World War II and then Korea, and now it's for the Vietnam era. So on our flight, and I was gonna talk about it. But anyway, as I say, Veterans Honor Flight, Minnesota, North Dakota has flown approximately 2,302 World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War veterans to Washington, D.C. That was prior to us. This flight consists of 215 living veterans, 213 men, 2 women. 1 World War II, 22 Korean, 192 Vietnam. There are 127 were Army, 16 were Marines, 22 Air Force, 50 Navy, no Coast Guard, and no Space Force. And additionally, since our last trip, so if you get on the list, what you put in, and then they'll tell you about 6 months or something like that prior to you, that, when you're going to go, that you've been selected. So in that time, once you've been selected, you then get to be, you're honored really. So anyway, what happened in the time of these 3, so additionally, since our last trip, we have performed 3 virtual honor flights for heroes who no longer are able to travel. They will be carried in spirit. And they did that right on a plane. It's on this trip. It's kind of emotional, but anyway. Let me start interrupting right away. I think we really ought to recognize the fact that we have 1 World War II veteran in our area here that's still alive, and that's Jim Ramstead, Charlie's father, Dylan's grandfather. And he's been on the flight, I believe?
Yes, it was 4 or 5 years ago, I think, maybe more than that now.
4 or 5 years ago. So he's
10.
He's 101 coming on 102, is that right?
10 years ago?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
10 years
I'm
ago.
glad
I had the thought and didn't think of it to see if you could have brought some sweaters, but whatever. Okay, very good. So to interject, we got some real interest here, and I know that we talked about a couple of the people who've been, I know people who've been on the honor flight as well, so, okay.
Well, that's what I mentioned a little about. So anyway, I originally got drafted November 16th, 1971. And so when you get drafted, you get a lottery at them days. And as far as I know, I could be wrong, but I got drafted November 16th with 2 other, Dave Martinson and Kurt Yerkes, or Kurt Kazitka, both from Detroit Lakes. I don't know if some of you probably know that. As far as I know, there could be somebody who's been drafted later, but that's the end of the draft, as you know. So we've had over 50 years of volunteer service in this country. So that's really says something for patriotism of who we have still serving today.
Yeah.
So anyway, at that time, you spent 2 years, but the Vietnam War was shutting down, and so they had a 90-day early out if you wanted to join the National Guard for 90 days, from 1 year. So I said, I'll try that, and a lot of my friends were there anyway. So I stayed for 25 more. I really enjoyed that. So ended up being a first sergeant in the last 8.5 years and enjoyed it. And there's a lot of soldiers in the community still calling me top, and I don't even know most of them anymore. But that's how my career went with in the National Guard. So. And I think the time is kind of short here, so we really need to get on with the program.
Well, the first picture, well, this is actually an Oktoberfest that the Rotary put on, and this is the person who led our group in our bus, Luann, and so she's on the right, and the other 2 are relatives, I think, in town here, so we might know them, so you might recognize some people as we go through this. We had about 8 or 9 people from Detroit Lakes.
Yeah, the original picture that was online there, that was up here while you were eating, what happened is I got a picture and I sent my daughter-in-law teaches at high school, and I had her kind of rework the picture and put that word on there, Minnesota, North Dakota, honor flight, so I gave that to all 9 of us that were together, and so that's where that picture came from. So it was, kind of interesting. I didn't know we get on a flight and all of a sudden, I don't know if you know Al Breivik, you guys, he was my roommate in Washington, D.C. It was kind of interesting. Hi Al, I've known him for many years. But, anyway, so yeah, so we you're going there that morning. You have your local, somebody's Gehrke give, and she's a member of this there, what do you call it? Bagpipers. And they managed coming in, so it started right away. The Cass County Sheriff meets you in the parking lot, bring you to the door. I mean, it's and then you go in here. There's Luann. A lot of you probably know her. I don't know if that was her maiden name. She'd been married McDonald. Luann. She graduated in '79 from Detroit Lakes. Anyway, there's a flight there in Fargo, there, the airplanes, there's 2 of them leaving out of there. There's 2 planes this time. What happened before, I always had 1 plane from Fargo in the fall and 1 in Grand Forks, I think it was, but then now this year, they're putting 2 out of Fargo in the spring, in the fall, and 2 out of Grand Forks. 2 flights, $270,000 per plane. Imagine that. So just us 2 planes was, just to go was over $500,000, $575,000. So, and you're gonna do that twice a year. So if you have the opportunity anywhere to do a fundraiser and you hear the honor flight, feel free to hand up because it's really a good program and it takes $1.2 million a year to get these 4 planes to Washington and back. So here we're flying into Baltimore, and you know the honor when we came back in Vietnam, you know, didn't do much of this, but almost all the soldiers coming back from Iraq when they fly in the country, they do this honor flight. They fly the water over the plane when you're entering the country again. And I remember even when our troop went to National Guard, left and came back from Iraq, I made sure that Treadix Police Department, Fire Department did that for our troops coming down Washington Avenue. So that was kind of interesting. They didn't get that in Vietnam. Here's Ed. There's our buses once we get to Washington. All right, actually Baltimore. We flew into Baltimore because Washington, I think, might have been pretty crowded when getting all these people and planes and buses. I guess I'd be in the plane. Yeah, and this to me, Fort McHenry National Cemetery Monument. I don't know if any of you had the opportunity to realize. I didn't realize how important it is. You should have realized that, but God, I was just taken by the fact when you get there, what happened, and of course where Sir Francis T. Scott went out and Star Spangled Banner, we rolled it out, and after the battle at night, it's a poem. That bridge out there, that's where at least a couple of years ago, that ship hit that bridge. I didn't realize the importance of that was and how close that was. But when we were taking this picture and looking out there, I think that's, I don't know how many miles that is, but I don't know what picture Ed's got coming up here, but when we were standing there, we were talking about the British were out coming into port. They had the ships out about 2 miles because they figured to get out of the firepower of our cannons. Well, they figured out if they put them out, when the cannonballs, they've been red hot, stuck them in fire, and they lob them out there at the ships, just out in the ocean like that, and they could, when they're still on hot fire, they'd hit the side of the ships and they'd start them on fire. That was kind of interesting. Yeah, and that's an interesting thing. A 30 by 42 flag. We unfurled that. I guess that's why we're about a 14-minute speech about how, you know, how the flag was made. There was like, I think there was 6 people worked 6 weeks to make the flag, but back afterwards in Baltimore. I don't know if that was this particular one, but the story about the one that actually flew over the post.
Wow. That was the actual.
Yeah, that was neat. Yeah, that's a big. Okay, then.
We went by this, but we weren't in the political part, so we didn't stop at the Capitol, but this is.
Yeah, one thing about the honor flight, it's truly an honor flight, and all you take in is military, and we didn't get political at all with anything other than we drove by or got to see if the politicians were in town, they came, they let them be amongst us and they could talk to them, but they didn't give them any time on stage. It truly was a military experience where soldiers could talk to soldiers, sailors, and they just wanted to keep it that way. And that was a group of 215 of us at the World War II Museum. And then they have the east side, the west, the Pacific, and the Atlantic side at the World War II Museum, Washington Monument. And I can't really see that on there. I didn't realize they did, but halfway up on that Washington Monument was made in 2 phases. I don't know what year, but you know, they ran out of rocks, so the color's a little bit different on the top 2/3. You can't really see that, but you look at it naturally, you can.
Yeah, they stopped construction during the Civil War.
You can pay.
Yeah. So they stopped construction of the Washington Monument during the Civil War. And when they came back to resume construction, all of the granite had been used from that quarry, so they had to go to a different quarry to finish the monument.
You know that.
Very interesting. I know to go up there, you can't get up there, you probably know that people have been in Washington, but you gotta get on the list in 2 years out or something. It's just, people wanna view it.
You remember that Kilroy was there? They kept saying,
You gotta find where Kilroy is here. Apparently in, was it World War II that they did that? It was Kilroy around, maybe that symbol is different things. It was on the granite, you had to look for it anyway.
Here in Lincoln Memorial.
You drove by this one again too. This is Jefferson, I believe.
Yeah, we didn't go to Jefferson there, so.
Oops. Watch.
Yeah, they had a pretty good, what is it, the Hyatt Regency in Washington DC. I think if you went there on your own dime, it was like $500 a night for a room and $75 for a plate. Well, we got to stay there, so that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, and we didn't take any money out of our own pocket the whole time. Everything was paid for, except for if you wanted booze.
And I had no. There we go. This is at we call it the Congress.
The Library of Congress.
Yeah, it's really interesting. That's a level 4 security to get in there. So it took quite a while of time for us all to get through to get there, but it was kind of interesting when you get to see the actual Bill of Rights and all that.
Declaration of Independence. Yeah. Wow. That's one of the 4 pages of the Declaration.
That's the Constitution.
Navy
The
one.
Navy Memorial. And when we got to every memorial, they took the group that if you're all Navy, they made sure you got your picture in front of the Navy, or if you're Army, we got
I don't know what building it is across the street from the Navy one.
I put this picture in because one of the things that the Navy one showed the picture of the Apollo 13 astronauts being pulled out of the ocean, and the ship that did that was Iwo Jima, which is the ship I was on. I was not on at the time, it was after I was on it, and they used the helicopters to raise them out. And many years later, I met Jim Lovell, the commander of Apollo 13, as a picture of myself with Jim.
There we are, the
Marine Memorial.
U.S. Marine Memorial. Pretty big. And if you think of that Marine Memorial, if you guys ever go there and have a chance, if you look at it in the top, as the men are all holding that flag up, there's 13 hands and only 6 bodies. I mean, they think that somebody did that, so that God's hand, I mean, that's supposedly what the image was supposed to maybe represent.
Gotcha.
So look at that if you get a chance, see it again. There's a bunch of us that right there. Group.
Any of those names that people might recognize, these are all from Detroit Lakes area here.
Yeah. Kurt Ullman, Kurt Erickson, Dave Ullman, myself, Ed Gehrke, Dave Newstead, Jim Witowich, and Ed. Air Force, you can tell a story about that.
Well, we came to the Air Force, the most interesting thing to me was where that monument is built representing the Air Force, where we were standing, is where the plane came right across. It would have hit that if it would have, before it hit the Pentagon. And so it would have, that was built there afterwards, but this is the Pentagon from that site. Now I zoomed in on it a little bit, but basically the plane came in, hit the towers where the hotel was above us, went right where we were standing, and then hit the Pentagon. Amy Klobuchar stopped by to say hello. Again, no political stuff, but she did shake the hands and make an appearance. And so did somebody else also did.
I think Fishbach was there the night before, and then North Dakota was at the Lincoln Memorial the next day.
I don't know the name
The senator, what that? Kramer. Hogan. Yeah, here's one of our, the night, so another thing, and surprising, I mean, I don't know if any of you had the opportunity, but I get, when you're in the military, a big thing in the military is mail call. I mean, because now you don't even think about that. You can talk to everybody every minute of the day and watch them. But back in, up until the internet and phones, you didn't get a letter, you didn't talk to anybody at home for months, it seemed like. So everything you waited for, mail call, that was one of the most important minutes of the day. So they made that an option here, and apparently how they did it, you have to put a name in there for somebody to be notified if something happens, other than your spouse was my son, so he had to give letters out. So I got 30-some letters, believe it or not, I just couldn't believe it. Anyway, it's mail call, so everybody got their bag, and the gentleman that brings it to you gets a big picture. So anyway, during that time frame, so Ed says we should read a letter that each one brought, so I'll let him read his first.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
This letter was from Diane Gallagher, actually. Did you share? I thought it'd be appropriate. Dear Edward, as you prepare for your journey in the honor flight, I want to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude for your service, your dedication as a Navy officer during the Vietnam War. It's a testament to your courage and commitment to our country. You played a vital role in ensuring that the food and money supply aboard USS Iwo Jima contributed to the well-being of your fellow sailors. Your efforts did not go unnoticed, and they made a significant difference during a challenging time. In honor of your service, here's a short verse. In the heart of the ocean, where courage meets the tide, you stood as a beacon with honor as your guide. Edward Gehrke, a name we hold dear. Your service to sacrifice we proudly revere. Through trials and storms, you kept spirits high. With food and supplies, you helped others get by. As you embark on this journey, know you are esteemed, a hero in our hearts, fulfilling a dream. Thank you, Edward, for your bravery and dedication. Enjoy every moment of your honor flight. With deepest appreciation, Diane Gehrke.
And I got quite a few letters, but the one that I picked for today, at least, and I got a lot of good letters, but if a lot of you know Hans Gilsdorf. Well, Hans is a good friend of mine, and I actually known him quite a while. Back when the Gilsdorfs built Lakeside in 1990, I basically remodeled that old motel and built the Lakeside with the Gilsdorf family, and then I built their house to Hans and Mary Beth. So that kind of the letter, some of the stuff in the letter. But on the outside or the north side of the VFW here, you see all the pictures, the 6 half faces of different wars. Well, he made one and put in my letter of me, so I thought that was pretty. I mean, I'll keep that as a memento for sure. Anyway, thank you, Dave, for your service and dedication to our country, state, and community, and your servicemen and women, and especially your loving family. It's people like you that make our lives all that much better. You inspire us to work harder and help others around us, constantly demonstrating the significance of leading and being present, and most importantly, never forgetting. I'm grateful to have you in my life and call you a friend. You have been part of my family for many decades, for building the Lakeside, and all while putting up with my dad's concussion. He called it concussion. Many times his dad was a surgeon in an emergency room in Arizona, and he'd help me build windows and stuff. He'd run his fingers a quarter inch away from that blade. It just scared me. But anyway, building our home. You kept our schools the best. You even taught me about Norwegian flat screen, winter ice fishing, spearing. I took him fishing. You like that? See, that's a great one. I'm grateful for you. My God, your community shines because of folks like you. Keep it up. And again, thank you, Dave, for being you. Your friend, Hans Gilsdorf. No, well, I think we don't have time. We got it. These guys, and most of you guys probably get out of here at noon or 1, right? So we probably better keep going on that.
He's got a great letter you received from his, anyway, we'll take that. Okay, so anyway, that was the letters we received at mail call, which, and I was surprised, because all of a sudden somebody gets mail call and started bringing letters, and I said, well, how did anybody know we're even here, you know, and then all of a sudden I'm like, wow.
It's part of their
Very,
plan.
very powerful. I don't know, I was gonna ask Dave to explain this picture, but anyway.
Well, actually, I could say, that gal, that's her husband there. She worked at the high school, and I worked school a lot, and she's a para at the high school. She comes to me, she says, you know, I'm Amy. She says, I'm, are you Amy Knopf's father? Yeah. And she said, well, so I said, well, I just had to give her a hug for being a nice person and helping her. But anyway, I never knew her. I meet her in Washington, D.C. That's just kind of the interesting part of that.
Yeah. So we're at Arlington, we're going to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier at this point. And I put this one in here, the picture on the right, because this man I met when we first arrived to get our jackets and our bag and our cap and our shirt and stuff like that. And he said, who are you? And he said, well, I'm with the VA. And I said, what do you do? He said, I'm chief of staff. And he said, here's my card. If you ever have any problems with the VA, give me a call. That made my day. You deal with the military and how impersonal it is. Well, the VA in Fargo is amazing. They'll take lots of time with you, as opposed to many times doctors are on a schedule. They're hard to take the time to really get to know you, and so they did do that with me, and I'm very impressed. I know not everybody's had as great experience as I have, but VA has been just wonderful in Fargo. So here he is, just taking care of somebody who scratched himself or something, who knows what, but he's just chief of staff of the hospital on the honor flight helping us out.
So I don't know if he's got pictures. Oh, this, if you know, being able to go to Washington D.C., always, Too Many Unknown Soldiers always been on my mind, something I really wanted to do. But I never realized it don't really show maybe as much in this picture, but it was a gloomy, foggy day, mist. It was almost tranquil, or whatever the word. It just meant so much more to watch, and it was just so crisp and so sound in there. They say there's something that they do when the honor guards or honor flights are in town. They click their heels even more, something more, make a more sound effect than they normally would. But I mean, it was just a beautiful sight, and the fact that it was a gloomy and foggy day, it almost meant it felt like the soul was out. You know what I mean? It was just interesting how that feeling, being able to be there. Yeah, I don't know if you got that. Arlington Cemetery is amazing. It's just a beautiful. But to say, I can't remember how many there were buried in there today. But another thing, so on the flight with us, one of the gals that was in charge of the Facebook by the minute, she was on the same bus with it. So as we were coming in Arlington, I don't think she was married at the time, but her husband was actually one that guarded. It was a horse always rode the perimeter around Arlington with a horse. And that time when that plane flew over his head, he just flew over his head. It wasn't, and again, the same thing, the Pentagon's just a little bit, it hit the treetops. He said it's the only time in many years he was there, he let his horse run back to the stable. I mean, he was actually there, watched the bottom of that plane crest his head. Just outside the Vietnam Wall. It's just interesting. Of course, a lot of our guys are Vietnam, so it's just a lot of tears this day. I'm telling you, it gets moving. And I took a couple of pictures of a couple of the guys that, I don't know if Kent was a friend of mine in Oklahoma years ago. I found his name and took it. And then Archie Starr's brother David, I just brought that back to the families. But it's just an interesting thing. And you all probably been there or haven't, was in town, but even this is just that much more special. And you can actually go to I think there's 58 placards from around the end of the other end.
So what you can do is make an emboss, or you take a paper and then go over so you can make copies. So I did find 2 Gehrkes on there. I always said I wasn't related to any of these other Gehrkes I've written, but I was told one Gehrke came to Wisconsin, had a bunch of kids, and I'm related to all the Gehrkes that, so I know on that. But, anyway, so you can take that and you go with the dark crayon, everything, and it makes an emboss. I've got that for the 2 Gehrkes that were on there.
The rubbing.
This is the Korean War part of it, and I did not go to that one. I spent all my time in the Vietnam one, but people are saying the same thing.
Again, another day, it's just like when you take a day like the day, or not just like the day, but maybe like, what day was it, snowing and raining, when it's a misty, foggy day, and you can imagine the Korean War bit, and it just feels like you belong in that day. It's not like, almost like it's supposed to be that day when you go there. I mean, it seemed like it added another level of interest to that memorial versus a sunny day. 18 different people. Make a memorial. That's really an awesome feeling when you're in there, I think. And then the Army Museum. Different things in the Army Museum.
I pictured this one because in Vietnam, that's what it was like almost all the time with the Huey helicopters, and I'd be in the back, but I always had a gunners at the door there watching and making sure we were being shot at, hopefully. Anyway, so this is the Army.
That's Kurt and I, Dave. He bought the shirts so we could look like the same when we got to the Army Memorial, so we had to wear them that day. Which was fitting, obviously.
So they had an amphitheater kind of place there, a place you could sit and watch, and they portrayed a lot of the history, and it was quite an amazing experience. One of the pictures I was on there, I saw this on the site, Ed Schwarzkopf, and I met him many years ago now, but I did meet him in Minneapolis when he was giving a talk. So he was a commander of the Gulf War, pretty much, and general in charge. This is a group from from Detroit Lakes
All
area.
of us plus the family, a gal and her husband.
So went to the Women's Memorial also, which is newer, and it was very impressive. Great job of honoring the women. It's interesting, I was driving this morning from here to pick up Daniel, and the woman was serving me. She said, I had my jacket on. She said, well, I was in the military too. She said, I served 3 tours in Afghanistan, and we broke my hip the 3rd one. But she said I was a medic there, and I was there to take care of the guys we were during the hottest period. And she was very touched. It was very touching to meet her, actually, because I was wearing my jacket at the time. But that was just this morning. I think, wow, she really was in service to the men.
And one picture of that lady, there was a dog, it's a captain, female captain saying goodbye to her dog. You probably maybe know the story on that, something, but on that picture probably right there, that's pretty, it's kind of a moving little picture. Young girl saying goodbye to her dog, she's heading off to her mission. And all these buses here, we all had, this is what we had, the Coach USA was part of the bus, each plane there was 4, so we had 8 buses, each plane had 4 buses, there was like 180 on each plane, so you split that up, almost 45 to 50 on each bus, and every time you stopped, the bus was ready. They took, if you needed a wheelchair, they had 16 wheelchairs on each bus, and you got in a wheelchair, if you wanted one, and they had food and water and snacks and everything all the way along every trail. If you got tired, you could sit down for a while. And see, here it's coming back.
You're coming back.
Yeah, so now when you start looking, I don't know how many pictures you got here, but you know, in Vietnam, most of Vietnam War era people came home and never got a welcoming home. I mean, so when you see some of these guys come off this plane, they're tears. It's pretty moving. And they timed this so well. I mean, there's 2 flights. They separate us long enough apart so that the first plane can get unloaded and have the welcoming home, and the second one just never really a split. But they time that with the TV stations in Fargo, so they have a lot of community there. It's just amazing. I mean, there had to be over 500 people there. And it's you really get a welcoming home. Like I say, a lot of these Vietnam soldiers never got that offer.
Is that you?
I guess so. That's
I saw that picture though. Maybe that's this guy.
That's my grandson and granddaughter there. Yep. That was very nice.
That's it.
Okay, so I guess we got that hit right pretty close to one. But any questions or any idea, anything you want to ask? I suppose a lot of you have to go back to work, but anyway.
The person on the left here, what's her name again? She's in charge of helps with fundraising in our region now, and I think she's from this area. She lives in this area now. So I don't call her name offhand, but anyway, so that's who's on the left there. She's going to help with fundraising. And I said, wow, you must have some big fundraisers. No, almost all the fundraisers for all this money are done with small groups, small amounts of money. It's a huge number of fundraisers, but all smaller quantities. Not all, but a lot of them are smaller quantities. Yes?
So where does the next flight send from this area?
Well, it's from this area. The next flight is already. I know I talked to Lowell Schlatter just the other day. He's on the next September one. It's still it would be like the 26th of September. But before that, no. And he's thinking in mind what has to happen in order to make this happen. The 2 main things they got to do. They got to get flight air. They got to round up air, and they got to round up hotels, and everything else gets scheduled on that. So next spring, 2 aircrafts are leaving out of Grand Forks on Easter Sunday morning. That's the only time they could make it work. So, and then the next time, 2 out of Fargo, and that's next September. So twice a year, they're going to try to do 2 planes in the spring and 2 in the fall, because there's over 900 people waiting on the list. So that takes care of them. So 400 a year, and there's 900 waiting. So, and to be eligible, all you have to have is an honorable discharge, and you had to have enlisted or drafted before May 1st, 1975. That's the criteria at this time. Yeah, but so if anything comes, we start seeing some spots where you can probably go and make a donation to the honor guard or honor flight. I mean, take the time and go. It takes a lot of money, like I say, $270,000, 40 or 50 each time those 2 planes leave. So if you can find it in your heart, it's worth. People really enjoy it. It's an experience you can't feel unless you've experienced it, I guess, you know.
Well, I'll tell tell you what, I spent a little bit of time in DC. Who all of here has been to DC? Quite a few of you, that's great. I had no idea what to expect when I went to the Smithsonian. I thought it was just one building. You know, it's just insane. You almost need a week to go through everything. Just one little piece of trivia. At the tomb of the unknown soldier, there's a soldier that paces, turns, and return paces. Do you know how many paces that soldier makes before he makes his turn? 21. Very good. The same as the 21 gun salute, right? Here's another trivia. The taps is 21 notes or changes of embouchure on the bugle.
Wow.
Why 21? Why 21? Well, 21, it's pretty simple. It's the sum of the digits 1776.
Oh, wow.
Interesting, huh? And that being said, since we're talking like that, go ahead.
One more piece of trivia. Who in the Detroit Lakes area is responsible for the people who do the 21 gun salute? Dave.
Dave. Dave's in charge of the 21 gun salute. That's
I knew
good.
that.